to talk about Cluely's wild ride. Last week, they announced that Andreessen Horowitz had funded their seed round at $15 million. The CEO getting all this hype because he created this software that will help you cheat. So he's basically using all this attention to grow his company, and it seems to be working. So I kind of want to talk about some lessons that you as a founder and as a startup can take from this, because obviously this isn't going to work for everybody. Modern marketing requires both product excellence and superior distribution. It is no longer enough for you to build an excellent product. You have to be able to distribute that and to get in front of people and get as many eyeballs as possible. And I think that's one thing that he's doing really well. He's starting with an attention first strategy in order to become as visible as possible. So the CEO, Roy Lee, isn't just doing interviews. He's literally the star of all the viral videos. So I see him showing up on TBPN almost weekly, which is kind of wild to think about. And then he's the star of most of the viral marketing videos that they put out there. He sticks to the message, which is, that he's kind of like an outsider and, is getting attention because he's not fitting in the mold of, the elite strata of like the Harvard and Columbia of, Amazon, which is one of the companies that he applied for and then ended up not getting the job because they found out he was cheating. And then at YC as well. This is something else that we mentioned up top with Tom Cruise, that it's shifting him becoming kind of like the narrative and like the voice of like the industry. And one thing I think that is working really well is that he's using it as what he said is an enterprise Trojan horse in order to get the attention for the product that they're selling to enterprise companies. And I think what works really well here is that it's kind of shifted from being a, cheating product to being a sales product, which if you really think about it, sales is kind of always going to feel like, a little grimy. People don't like being sold to. So it's kind of the perfect like industry for it to be in, because people already get those vibes anyway. And so now they're shifting over to like, we're going to help you make sales by making it feel as if you're cheating by getting all this information from people via their AI desktop app. And then one of the other things that I've started noticing is that companies are starting to become media engines, not just product companies. Another viral video that came out was showing their marketing hires recently. And so those are all essentially influencers that they've hired. Also, before that, hired 60 plus content creator interns who were like pumping out TikToks daily and essentially created like a content factory showing the product and then, raising the profile of Cluely itself.
Any new brand has to be disrupting some kind of status quo. Otherwise, what's the point? The thing people can learn from is how can you best convey that you are disrupting the status quo? I think something that's interesting here is that it's just revealing more about some of these interview processes, right?
Yeah.
Like, not everyone's going to interview at Columbia, right? Or at Amazon, but what is that like? I think those are things that people are really curious about. And I think the overall takeaways, I think, are pretty broadly relatable. So I think that's partly part of, why it's been working so well for them.
Yeah, I definitely think you've hit on something there. The whole idea of what it's like to be a part of like the elite and like what it means to gatekeep those circles, right? I think part of what people are glomming onto is that they seem to be saying like, I could do this, but I don't want to do it. And like, here's why, because your process is stupid. And here's how to get around that.
For sure.
I think is fitting the vibes of what like a lot of people are feeling these days, that things are not fair, that status matters more than it should, that it has nothing to do with your actual talent. And so by hitting these like marks over and over, it's really finding the type of consumer that feels this way, and that wants to kind of break down those barriers, which is why I think the fact that they're shifting into sales is like the perfect industry for them. One thing though, especially for companies, your reputation and the trust that you build matters a lot. So are they going to be able to get enough early adopters that makes their whole start in like the whole being, of cheating being like the main thing that they're promoting, like quell the resistance that like people that, the normies, that
Hmm.
eventually you have to sell to, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not enough to just sell to like early adopters and to early stage companies. Eventually, it's all going to rely on your reputation. So are you going to like become the default sales tool fast enough before people kind of, feeling the ick of like the fact that they've built that reputation based on cheating? This isn't going to work for everybody.
Right,
Like
right.
if your industry relies completely on your reputation, trust, and your status, like you cannot do this. What are the things that you can do, right? I think obviously, creating content that shows that you're at the forefront of your industry, whether through like thought leadership of like the CEO or like who's building the product, can work. And like that's something that you should focus on. And then also realizing that like content creation and creating, those marketing channels for you to like, promote yourself is going to be more important than ever. Like I said, like it's not enough to just build a great product. You have to be able to distribute it and people have to learn about you in some way because there are so many companies being built right now. What's making you different? you know?
Yeah.
So that's something to think about there.
Yeah, I think I also want to talk about their, sort of content farm, right? Or not, let's not say farm, their
Yeah.
content factory, right?
Yeah.
Where they've hired a bunch of people to create content.
Mhm.
I think where that's really smart is, you think about the nature of this product that they're selling, and it's going to be pretty hard to get some user generated content, right? I don't think
Right.
anyone's going to want to brag about using it, at least
Right.
not publicly,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's really smart that they have hired content creators so that they have people doing this for the brand.
Yeah.
So it's the brand saying it, and it's sort of, and it's the brand that's on the hook for it.
Hmm.
They're not waiting on users to be able to say it for them. Although I'm sure if a user wants to put their neck on the line like that,
Yeah.
that's going to be their issue, right? But
Yeah.
all this to say, I think a really smart takeaway here too is, kind of know the stories, or what are the think about the things that your customers can say or tell better than you can, and then think about what you can say or what is better for you to say instead of your customers. And for this kind of thing where inherently that's risk, right? You don't want to
Hmm.
ask your customers to do something risky for you. If you're the one creating that product,
Right.
you should be the one on the hook for that risk, right? So I think this is a good way for them to continue to own that.
Yeah, agree. Um, Another key takeaway for me is that we're shifting away from the build it and they'll come to attention first, product second. I'm
Yeah.
talking about their enterprise shift because that's what they said that they're building, but
Hmm.
no one's really coming out and saying that they're using that yet.
Yeah, I don't think they
And
will.
right. And even the product that they said that they built before that, started this whole thing, is not really the product that they have, right?
Hmm.
So a word of caution here is eventually people are going to come to you and be like, so what are you actually building?
Yeah,
And is it actually good?
yeah,
Because as we've seen, there is a whole graveyard of companies that had a lot of hype that have now failed.
yeah,
Some major ones: WeWork, Theranos, Bolt, Fast, Humane AI, most
yeah.
recently, and those companies don't really exist anymore, right?
Hmm.
So that's something that eventually they're gonna have to, put up or shut up, right, with the product that people are actually using and that they're actually selling. So obviously they have some time. They're just raising right now. Andreessen Horowitz is obviously going to help them out with, their own brand and reputation behind it. But yeah, eventually they're going to have to show that they've built an actual functioning product and
Yep.
that people are actually buying it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much attention you got. Like if you don't actually have a company, you're going to end up failing.